Hey, I'm Sheena Shuey. I'm a registered social worker and host of the 4Q podcast. I'm passionate about normalising, not pathologising life, and that's not easy. So each episode, I have amazing guests on to share the messy, beautiful ups and downs of life in 4 key questions with tips and tricks along the way. There are moments in life where you can embrace your story and understand that it's okay not to feel okay sometimes. So let's get into it. This is the 4Q podcast. Does the holiday season exhaust you? We're going to explore today is why is the holiday season so exhausting and what could be causing it and what you can do next. So let's start off with the first R today, which is reflect. Now, if you're feeling exhausted this week, it's a big week for a lot of people. You might be finishing work for the week or putting things on pause or trying to wind up a whole bunch of things, whether it's winding up emails, winding up school, winding up this, winding up that. That's exhausting. That's a lot of work. And then also, you've got a lot of big things coming up with friends, family, activities, and especially this year when we haven't been so social, that's a big thing coming up. So if you're feeling exhausted this week, first of all, don't feel guilty. I think sometimes some women I speak to set these unrealistic expectations that they're going to be Mary Poppins this week, or, they're just going to have everything put together and they're going to be merry and have the Christmas spirit, or, just this, it's like this perfect housewife in some ways. And that's not going to happen. So don't feel guilty because it's a big, busy, burnt out time of year. So I want to redefine this for you though. So let's get on to the second R of this 4Q podcast, which is the redefine, because I want to get to that because one of the things I want to talk about is I recently put a post up around is it sensory overload, stress, or anxiety? Now, I want to give this example. I want to tell a story that's going to be so common to so many of you. And the story is, imagine that you are hosting a gathering or hosting a party or, going to a social event, which is so common this week, okay? It's hard to know what's sensory stuff, what's anxiety, what's stress. So one way of thinking about it is, let's say you're at this social gathering and you just find that you cannot focus. Like no matter what you do, you can't focus. Like there's kids running around, there's, music in the background, there might be dishes clanging, people laughing and chattering. Like there's a lot of noise. And if you're anything like me, a lot of this year I have spent indoors on my own with smaller amounts of people. That's going to be a lot of noise to be used to again. And that's a very sensory experience. So again, this could be you if you're feeling an instant sense of relief when you finally go to the toilet or the bathroom. That feeling where you finally close the door and you're quiet and you're by yourself for a moment and you just feel this sense of relief. That's probably because you're in sensory overload. You might also be finding, like I mentioned, the sounds a lot, maybe even the smells a lot. Like it's a lot when you don't have a lot of smells around, and then you have different colognes, different perfumes, different food, different wines, different everything. Kids, they've always got some weird sticky thing on them, right? So remembering that. And also it might be you if you're finding yourself like making excuses to go somewhere. So if it's your own house, if you're like, I've just got to pop to the kitchen to do this, or I've just got to pop in this room, or I've just got to pop in that room, just so you can have your brain to yourself for a moment. And when you're there, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so heightened right now. Like I just feel relieved. So that could be sensory overload. But let's say it's the party again, but you just find it's a lot to be hosting people. Like you're just worried about if everything's going to get done and you just got so much on your to-do list. So that would be a stress response rather than sensory overload. So stress is when you're responding to a stressful environment. So, if I was out in the wilderness and a tiger attacked me and I was stressed about that, that's a really common, normal experience, So that's in relation to that. Whereas anxiety, just to differentiate, anxiety is worrying about even going to a jungle, and then worrying about going to a jungle because I could run into a tiger, and then if I ran into a tiger, where would I go, and this and that. Like it's the what ifs. So stress is responding to an actual experience right now. Anxiety is responding to something that may not even happen. So I hope you can see the difference there. So so again, going back to the anxiety, it could be anxiety instead of stress if you're worried about things like this. Like you're worried about, what if the food doesn't turn out right how I want it to? What if my makeup runs? What if people aren't having a good time? What if they think of me? You're worrying about everything, and you might be over planning. Like you're trying to mitigate every possible risk that could be happening. So it's thinking of things like that. So if you're feeling any of these, whether it's sensory overload, stress, or anxiety, what I want you to think about when we get to the redesign is, what is your body telling you about this situation? So now that we understand that we could be feeling exhausted because of sensory stuff, of stress or anxiety, what is it about this that makes me feel like that? And it's exploring things like toxic relationships. Like if you're so worried about what people are thinking, this is where, seeing a coach or a therapist can be really helpful, because you got to ask yourself, is this my own stuff, or am I in relationships with toxic people who will judge me, or I've caught them talking about me before, or I've caught them judging me before? Like, do you really want to be around people like that? It's such a special time of year. Do you really want to be putting your energy into those relationships, into those people? Like, is that exhausting you? And again, same with stress. Like, why is some situations stressful and others not? If there's certain things that stress you out, can you ask for help or delegate it? So for me, one of the things that stresses me out about having people come to my house is dealing with mess. I just feel like I'm not good at cleaning. And I do have this bit of anxiety compared to stress, where I'm like worried about what people might think of my house if it's not clean, because I'm just not good at it. So the difference there is that the stress for me is actually doing the cleaning. Like, oh my gosh, I have to do a fair bit of cleaning before and after. But the anxiety is, what if they think this, or what if they think I'm messy, or, that kind of thing. So, but I have to ask myself, where is that coming from? And can I delegate? Like, could I ask my husband to help me clean? Or could I just give it all to him, say, you clean before, I'll clean after? Or could we get a cleaner? At some point, do we get a cleaner for after the party or before the party or something like that, just to take the tension off? So definitely things like that. And I guess that's where we come to the realign, is how do I realign my life so I can start to notice what is exhausting me, what's lifting me up, where's my energy going, and also understanding like what causes me stress, what causes me anxiety, and what causes my sensory issues. So on our website and in our resource library, you will see there's an activity called Energy In, Energy Out, or if you're on our Instagram, it's on the link in bio. And this is really about mapping out who gives you energy and who doesn't, what brings you energy and what doesn't. And sometimes they can be the same thing. Someone can bring you energy and drain it at the same time, which is an interesting relationship to be in. And then the next step is we have actual steps in that PDF where you can figure out what to do from there. So once you know what's bringing your energy up and bringing your energy down, you can start to make action and plans around that. So check that out. I think that will be really helpful. The other thing is that if you're interested in understanding your sensory profile, we are developing a resource at the moment. So if you check out our resource library, if you're listening to this in 2021, it'll be there. It's not there yet, but in the resource library, or even if you speak to an OT, or even, worst case, go on Google. I don't usually recommend Google for searching things, but look at your sensory profile. So there's 7 senses, and we all have things that calm us with that sense and heighten us with that sense. So, for example, with smell, we might have smells that we instantly feel calm with. So I'm thinking like peace lilies and, gardenias. I just think they just instantly calm me. And then there's things that might heighten your smell, like a burning smell, which is normal because it's like a stress response. Or maybe you have smells that you just have bad associations with that really heighten you. So just starting to be aware of things like that and go through that with each sense. So same with touch. What touches make you feel uncomfortable, and what touch does make you feel calm. Same with sounds, like nails on a chalkboard often heighten a lot of us, but there are calming sounds too. Maybe there's music genres that actually heighten you and there's ones that calm you. That's a really common one too. So just starting to notice that, and that will help with your sensory profile. So even if you can't control the fact that there's going to be a lot of noise around you, you can be quiet leading into that and quiet leaving, like knowing that that will calm you, or recognizing that that's what's stressing you out. Like actually being aware of what is the cause of my feeling like this right now can be huge. So if you're at a party and you're like, wow, there's so much noise, before it gets to the point where you're overwhelmed, take those moments where you're like, yeah, you actually do make those excuses of like, oh, I'm actually just going to pop to the bathroom. And even if you don't need to use the toilet or anything, and just take a moment just to reset and calm your nervous system down. I think that's huge. But again, one more reminder, I mentioned this earlier, but just remind yourself, your body is telling you something when it comes to the stress and the anxiety. So I want to remind you that we have a lot of loved ones in our lives that we're seeing at this time of year. And unfortunately, we do see a lot of people out of obligation. We feel this, need to fulfill things. But ask yourself, why do I need to do this? Who is toxic in my life? Why do I feel so anxious hanging around some people and not other people? Why do I worry so much about what that person thinks and not another person thinks, What is it about that person that makes me feel this way? And is that relationship healthy? And how can I put boundaries around that relationship, or maybe change that relationship in the future? But please be kind to yourself. Do not feel guilty if you're just exhausted this week. And don't forget, you've got that free resource on the website if you want to check it out, or send us a message on Instagram. You know where to find us. It's just instagram.com/Savasana Collective, which is SAVASANA SANA, collective. So I hope you enjoyed this. And don't forget, this comes to any holiday season or party season or anything like that. Use these tools. All right, I look forward to seeing you and speaking with you really soon. Good luck, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye.